Hey, we're with Chris Hatter, and we'll be going through the Portsmouth Wearable Trackers Initiative for this campaign. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Chris Hatter. I'm the head of compliance at Portsmouth International Port. As well as looking after health and safety, we have 5 ISO standards which I'm responsible for. But we're also looking at lots of different innovation and ways to look at how we can bring in future port technology and make things better and safer for our workers.
So could you tell me a bit about this initiative that you've decided on?
Yeah, so we've been working with a number of different innovation funds and innovation areas. One of those has been Connected Places Catapult, who run a freight innovation fund and a transport catapult for maritime. They're bringing through quite a few new technologies, and by being part of that, it gives us the opportunity to look at what future work might look like, how we can better look after our teams, how we can set data to some of their work and make sure that we've got best practice in place or we're supporting them better. And because of that, we're trialing it, we're giving it a good go and trying to see what works, what doesn't, and how we can make that work process better for everybody.
So what prompted you to explore the wearable health trackers for port workers? Was there any specific safety concerns or physical concerns, anything to do with well-being?
Yeah, so looking at well-being as a whole, you've got to look at everything from the workplace conditions, how people feel valued. You're looking at, their tiredness, their stresses, is the work designed in the best way for them? And how do we end up also looking at shift patterns and, how we can make sure people are moving around those shifts in the best way? To do that, you need data. Actually, having some sort of source of real hard data that, can show us and demonstrate what we need to know, we can start building upon that and setting that to those work programs. So the three main programs that we're looking at in terms of wearables, one is related to actually geolocation on our site. It's part of our health and safety package for contractors, visitors, and also our staff. And that can help us with making sure that there's emergency contact information, but also help support us with lone working and knowing where people are. We've got wearables in terms of musculoskeletal elements. They're being trialed in 2 places. One is at the gates where we have people who sit for long periods. We want to make sure that they've got good posture, that they're getting the rest breaks that they need, and that we don't have long-term problems because of poor posture and DSE issues. And that is also being used in a different format around rope handling and linesman work. Again, you've got a number of different ways of handling ropes at the port. We've got some automated bollards, and then we've got some which are still hand pull. And being able to tell whether our team are doing it in the best way possible and actually have advice from that's driven from that data from experts means that we can go to our team and they don't feel they're being picked upon or, we're not quite getting it right. We're giving them hard data and evidence to make that better. And then our final one is around stress. We've got a lot of people wear wearable watches, whether it's a Fitbit or a Ring or, it might be an Apple Watch. But they're constantly giving lots of information. The trial we're doing is around resting heart rate and heart rate distribution. And that gives us an idea of the stress at work. You can then combine that with location, time, potentially what work's going on in the port, whether that's combining, gate data or whether that's combining ship data. And it gives us an idea of how people are feeling around their jobs. Um, all of it's geo-fenced, geolocated. It means that people aren't taking this home with them. We don't want to know what's happening outside. and hopefully that gives them that private element that they need.
Great. Thank you. It's really interesting to hear that it expands to stress, but also your physical health issues like MSDs. So that was particularly interesting to hear. Um, so what what sort of impacts do you think physical health has on mental well-being, and why do you think that's particularly important for ports to recognize?
Physical health is part of well-being, whatever someone thinks and whatever someone says, but the effects of physical health and how people feel in themselves, whether that's longer term pain, whether that's concerns around your health, it could be sleep deprivation, it could be just that, gnawing feeling of, pain in your back, your neck, concerns around disease and poor health. And all of that affects your mental health. They are intrinsically linked. Um, Equally, looking the other way, your mental health has an effect on your physical health. If you're not feeling as energized, as positive, maybe you are not getting out to do regular exercise, which is one of the five ways to well-being, and a very good way of making sure that everything remains nice, fit, and healthy, and you've got both good mental health and well-being. Um, so it's really important to understand that link and look at how, as employers, we can make that better. um, as I say, having data and raw data gives us more information on how to reevaluate, shift work, particular individuals who may be going through stressful periods, not just at work, but also in their home life, because we've got to remember a person is a whole. It's not just about what they're doing at work. Some people flourish when they come to work. If they've got problems at home, it's an escape, but others bring that with them and really struggle. And equally, work has an impact going the other way.
Of course. So then, would you say that for this initiative, were you specifically targeting um, physical health, physical health things like MSDs and sort of stress as well? Was that what you were specifically targeting in light of that?
Um, in some ways, it's been sort of a marriage of convenience, shall we call it? We've had um, the opportunity to trial these products because it's on a funded scheme. It means that we can look at areas where we've got concerns. We've got an aging workforce. Our team down at the Keys do a very physical job. It's one of those roles where it's very easy to, do something in the wrong position and actually hurt your back or hurt something that is going to cause you long-term pain and problems. And as I say, with the aging workforce, that's particularly something that's concerning. But equally, we're starting to see younger people come in. They maybe have that feeling of invincibility that we all do when we're in our 20s, and actually being able to turn around and say, look, if you're not handling this in the right way and you're not seeing it in this way, you're not going to be able to sort of have a fulfilling long-term health um, you know, background, because you're going to struggle with that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think particularly in a high pressure environment like the port industry, where we do have it particularly a male dominant demographic as well, those are all things that kind of play into that as well. For physical health, they're just things to consider. Um, so how do you think the impacts of health differ across all organizational levels? So from management to your frontline workers, operators.
So all the way through, whichever role you're doing in a port, there's some stress. We need good stress to get us to do jobs and to perform on time and to be alert and make sure that everything's running to schedule. But where it becomes, too much, that has got a detrimental effect on your wider health, and that's both physical and mental health. And if we're not measuring this and understanding how it affects people differently and at different levels within the business, we can't fully understand what our workforce looks like. Um, I see, a lot of efforts being made around how we look after our teams on the ground. They're really important. They're really, they make it work. But quite often at senior levels, even and middle management, you're seeing a lot of pressure put on people, and they're trying to manage, they're trying to do their jobs, they've got, tasks, and people quite often forget that they actually have to look after both their mental health, their stress levels. Um, and if you're trying to progress in a career or new into a sort of role where you've got those additional pressures and stress, you don't want to sometimes say that actually we need to redesign our work, or we need to have a think about how we support somebody in those roles, because we do still have that quite masculine idea of, we will be fine, we will get through it, this is part of learning the job. And maybe sometimes we need to look at that and just reflect on whether we are supporting people into those roles properly.
Yeah, and I suppose it goes back to the actual initiative in itself, the sort of idea of collecting data rather than placing blame or sort of accusing people. By providing that sort of evidence objectively, it kind of takes away that sort of blame culture around it and opens more conversations around it as well. So yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Having those conversations to explain what we're doing at all levels has been really useful, because people are now sort of understanding a bit more about the effect on their work and their home lives and how it affects them as a human. And then being able to demonstrate it. Yeah, take away the blame game. Here's data. Here's something that we can show you is right, is wrong. Hopefully it's something we can sort of provide further into the future and really build up a nice data set, so we know which roles have the most pressure or what time we're going to have those extra pressures. Um, and because of the way we're doing it, we don't know and don't connect the data to a person. You've got to make sure that you've got that separation for GDPR and personal identifiable information. But knowing what a role does, or knowing that there's a particularly stressful place or time of day, or someone's been on for a 12-hour shift and they're now shattered, it's the middle of the night, they're struggling, helps us inform all those decisions around how we plan work.
Great. Well, thank you so much. That is the first section complete. I'll stop the recording.
Thank you.